Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Glad you could be here. Now, take a seat here. I know we have a little surprise for you today, but Taylor, I think you did something a little special here about an hour and a half ago.
Did a little online shopping a few hours ago, and I happened to use Instacart, and I told them to bring us some stuff here, so we'll see if your app works.
Good.
We'll see if this thing actually works, Apoorva.
Yeah, I mean, I would be inclined to say that it does.
Okay. If it doesn't, you're gonna have 800 dissatisfied people out there that says this thing is a bunch of crap. But
fingers crossed.
Yes, fingers crossed. So let's go back in time, not too far in time. The morning of June 16th, 2017, you woke up to this headline: Amazon to buy Whole Foods for $13.7 billion. What goes through your mind? I thought I'd start with the easy stuff.
Oh, yeah. So, believe it or not, I recognize that as a blessing in disguise. When Amazon...
Oh, he's already here. Wait a minute,
Look at that. See
that? Come on,
Taylor, yes.
Taylor.
I'm here,
All right,
I'm here.
Jeez.
Yes, is this my delivery? Okay.
All right.
What do we got? Cookies for everyone.
Yeah.
And we got
Let's put those out on the stage. People can
lots
come
of cookies.
The GeekWire team can distribute those. All right.
Thanks. Yeah.
It's a 5-star order.
And most importantly, we have beer.
Beer. Yes. We're going to come back to that a little bit. Beer tells a little bit of our story here, but we'll crack one of those midway through. But yeah, take us back to June 16th, 2017. You woke up, and I presume you didn't know this news was coming.
I didn't.
You didn't have the inside scoop on that, and pretty ground-shaking news in terms of your industry and what you're trying to accomplish.
Absolutely. So I recognized at that moment that this was a blessing in disguise. And the reason for that was because when Amazon bought Whole Foods, with that, what they did was they sent a signal to the entire grocery retail landscape that Amazon was coming. Now, for every single grocery retailer at this point in time, whether they believed it or not before, now they needed an e-commerce strategy. They needed to have same-day delivery in order to thrive. And the reality was, for over the last 5 years, that's what we had done. We had brought hundreds of grocery retailers across the country online, and so we had the track record of being able to do this successfully. And so when Amazon bought Whole Foods, we became the retailer's first call. And the results speak for themselves. I mean, you've seen this, but we signed the premier New York retailer, Wegmans. We have signed Aldi, one of the most amazing discount retailer in the country. We have, a couple days ago, we announced our extended partnership with Costco, which is one of the largest retailers in the world. And best of all, we're not even done yet.
Yeah. Even so, Whole Foods is a partner, will remain a partner of yours through 2021. They're also an investor in Instacart. Isn't this a little awkward?
So they, believe it or not, they own less than 1% in Instacart, and they have no information rights. So would I rather not have them as an investor in Instacart? Yes. But does this keep me up at night? Absolutely not.
Is there a move to kind of wipe those shares off and have someone else buy out those shares?
We haven't had the conversation yet, but of course we'd be open to that.
Okay. Where do you see that relationship going? Because you do have an obligation to continue with the partnership through 2021. What are your goals, hopes for that up to 2021 and even beyond?
So look, we think about it from the customer standpoint, and today Instacart offers the best selection to customers. In every city across the country where we are delivering to our customers, they have the best selection because they have every single retailer that's available in the city on the Instacart platform. And so we want to continue to offer that to our customers. And so, we look for this as, of course, till 2021, but even after that, we want to have Whole Foods on our platform.
Yeah. Now, speaking of Amazon, you used to be an employee of the company, right?
Of course.
And you worked there, I believe, 2008 to 2010.
That's right.
In supply chain technology. I think you said it felt like it wasn't even work at times because it was so much fun.
Yeah.
So now with everything we've talked about and Amazon buying Whole Foods, are there lessons you've taken from your days at Amazon and that you've applied to Instacart, and maybe on the flip side, lessons that you've taken away that you don't apply to Instacart at the same time?
You know, when I used to work at Amazon, I used to be a supply chain engineer, like you mentioned. But you have to understand, I didn't understand anything about business at the time, right? And if people talk to me about enterprise businesses, I thought that they were talking about car rental companies, right? So it was a long way since then. And so what I decided was I needed to start fresh. What would make Instacart successful had to be unique to Instacart. And so one of our company values is, of course, but maybe. When I started the company about 5 years ago, it was, everyone told me that this was not going to work. Grocery delivery has been tried before, it has never worked, right? And it will not work. Right? And that's when we decided to say, of course, it has been tried before and it has not worked. But maybe if you flip the model, if you decide to not use warehouses, if you decide to not hold inventory, if you decide to not have the trucks, and instead partner with grocery retailers and allow them to come online, you can actually make this work. And as a result of this first principle thinking, we've been able to make grocery delivery a reality across the country.
So you have been able to differentiate and use retailers as your partners, kind of as a differentiation strategy against Amazon. You've said that you knew when you started Instacart, Amazon was going to be your number one competitor. You were very driven and strategic about partnering with retailers. The landscape has changed here, and really with the Whole Foods deal. What are retailers saying about Amazon when you go and you talk to the executive team there? Like, what is their impression? What are they fearful? Are they like, what's going through their mind when you sit down and you're making your pitch about Instacart?
The conversation has completely changed. At this point, retailers are coming to us. When the Amazon Whole Foods announcement happened, essentially every major grocery retailer in the country had an emergency board meeting. And right after that board meeting,
and you were
they
911.
called us. And so that's what we're seeing across not only in the United States, but internationally as well. We're just seeing the amount of energy, the amount of enthusiasm that we're seeing in e-commerce for grocery has never been the same, and we're very excited about that.
Yeah, and you're in almost 150 markets now.
That's right.
But I have to say, so I live with 3 other millennials, and I did my first Instacart order a few weeks ago. I got frozen salmon patties and trash bags from Costco. But my roommates were like, what's this? Like, how does it work? How did this get delivered? Who picked it out? How'd you pay for it? And so even for us, it's still kind of this new concept, right? Even though Instacart's been around, Webvan, which was like before I was born.
Oh, really, Taylor? Oh, no.
So I feel like there's still a lot of customer acquisition to do, customer education. Like, what's the strat? How do you guys think about this, especially as it just still seems like people want to go to the store and do it themselves versus pushing a bunch of buttons and getting it to their door?
Absolutely. I mean, there's the opportunity to grow is enormous. If you step back, and most people don't know this, but Americans spend 15 billion hours every year shopping for groceries. Most of those people would rather be doing something else. And so the demand for grocery delivery has always been there, right? But the reality is that making grocery delivery a reality has been very, very difficult. In fact, in all the attempts that have been tried before, there have been lots of barriers to customer adoption, right? If you just step back, for example, most American households, until recently, have not even been able to order groceries online, right? And even if you were able to order your groceries online, you would have to wait till next day. You would have to stay at home for a vast amount of that day to wait for their groceries to be delivered to your door. And let's say you're willing to put up with that, right? You would still be ordering from someone's warehouse, not the groceries that you wanted, right? And so all these barriers have existed. And with Instacart, we have tried to break down these barriers. Today, Instacart is available to over 63 million households, right? Most of those households have never had grocery delivery been a possibility. And in addition to that, those customers can order the groceries that they want from the retailers that they love and have them delivered to their door within 1 hour. This level of convenience has not existed before. And as a result of that, grocery deliveries are finally coming online.
So we've talked a lot about AI already at this conference, and we'll continue to do so over the course of the next day and a half. How long do you think it is before you have a completely autonomous system at Instacart, from the picking to the autonomous driver that's dropping it off at my doorstep?
It's a very good question. So if we step back and look at how AI and machine learning is being used today, right, and then we can talk about what this evolves to in the future. So today, I'll start by saying that Instacart wouldn't be possible without machine learning. Right? Everything that we do from matching supply and demand to efficiently picking and delivering groceries to creating individually personalized homepage for you, all of that is only possible because of machine learning, right? And this only becomes more and more a part of Instacart over time, right? But that's today. So in the future, if you think about it, today Instacart has created tens of thousands of part-time as well as independent contractor opportunities for people. And we want to continue doing that. We want to continue getting better at that and growing that. And the way we do that in the future is by making sure that the people are doing the work that they're uniquely suited to do, right? For example, picking ripe avocados for the foreseeable future will be something that humans are better than machines at, right? At the same time, when you think about delivering groceries in suburban Palo Alto, right? That can easily be done by a sidewalk robot. So those are the types of investments you'll be seeing us making.
And are you doing those investments now to
Yes.
build that infrastructure? Because some of the bigger competitors, like a Walmart or an Amazon, will have more resources to potentially do that. So how big of a push is it for you to invest in those sorts of technologies?
We've been thinking about this from day one at Instacart, and we've already made many investments, and many of our teams are already working on those types of things. I think that one thing that we've seen in across the industry is that just because the players like some of the ones that you mentioned are bigger does not mean that they have a greater edge. I mean, for example, for the last 5 years, Instacart has only existed for the last 5 years, but companies like Amazon Fresh, companies like Peapod and Fresh Direct have existed for 10 to 15 years, right? And just in the last 5 years of existing, Instacart has already become the largest grocery delivery company this country has ever seen, right? And that is because even when you're small, when you're focused, and this is the only thing that you're working on, you could be much better at it. And that's the same thing applies to AI.
I think this beer is kind of getting cold. You want to?
It's getting warm, you mean?
Crack one open.
It's getting warm.
The beer actually has a personal story and kind of shifts into your entrepreneurial journey.
It's a little too early. Not that kind of day.
Yeah, hey, it's noon somewhere. It's almost noon too. Tell us how a
John,
six-pack of beer.
Would you like one?
Yeah, I'll take one. Thanks. Tell us how a six-pack of beer got Instacart off the ground.
As I was starting the company, one of the things that I'd been told that was that it was very important to not just focus on raising money, but it was also very important to raise money from the best investors, the best incubators in Silicon Valley. And when it comes to the best incubator in Silicon Valley, of course it's a subjective question, but in my opinion, it's undoubtedly Y Combinator. And the only problem that was holding me back from getting into Y Combinator was the fact that I was 2.5 months late from their deadline. And so I applied, and they said, it's not going to work because it's too late. I got a few introductions to the partners there, and they said, nope, it's not going to work. And then I asked myself this question, which was, have these people even experienced the product? Do they even know what I was building? Do they know why this was different? And it was very clear to me that none of those things were true. They were just following a process. And so what I did was, as a last-ditch effort, I decided to open the Instacart app, and I ordered a 6-pack of beer and addressed it to one of the partners at the Y Combinator headquarters. 30 minutes later, I get a call. One of the partners there, Gary Tan, calls me up and he says, "What is this?" And I was like, well, I figured he knew that this was beer, so he wasn't asking me about that. But, so I told him, this is Instacart. And I guess he must have really liked that beer, because he invited me to come to a partner meeting the next day. And a couple hours after that, Instacart was it was a Y Combinator startup that had been accepted at the last hour, and they had never accepted anyone this late. We've come a long way since then, but it all started from a 6-pack of beer.
Yes, so never give up. Keep pitching, yes. Before you even got there, though, you had a pretty interesting entrepreneurial journey, because you are well known for starting after you left Amazon and you moved down to the Silicon Valley and you were living on your friend's couch with little money. You're an immigrant entrepreneur, tying into our immigrant's journey story from Canada. So there were fears of whether you were going to be able to stay in the U.S. actually. But you kicked around a lot of ideas. You had 20 startup ideas and companies that you started, including a social network for lawyers, which you said was a really dumb idea because lawyers aren't very social. Yeah. And I know there's some lawyers in the room here, including ours, so they'll get a kick out of that. You did like a matchmaking service for entrepreneurs to try to get connected with tech executives and mentors, which also didn't take off because it was hard to get time for these people. But you really were grinding here to try to come up with a business. Before I ask you the lessons of failure,
yeah.
What was the worst idea of the 20?
Let's see. It's hard. It's hard to pick just one.
Yes.
I think, believe it or not, I would have to say the social network for lawyers still is, in my opinion, will go down in the books as one of the worst ideas.
Yes.
Unless hopefully someone proves me wrong, which would be completely
well, there's a company
okay.
here in town called Avo, which is doing something along those lines to some degree. And just as, it's interesting as it ties to your story, because many people thought Webvan was the worst idea in history, and here you are trying to recreate that. But, more seriously, what can you tell the audience about kind of the lessons you learned coming out of as many failures as you did? Because you had a kind of an emotional story about how you had to give $1 million back to your investors on some of those early ideas, and it was not easy going on those early parts before you got to the $3 billion valuation at Instacart. What were the lessons of failure you learned out of that process?
So I do want to correct you. We didn't give the money back to the investors. They said no. They wanted us to continue. But I think, look, when you go through 20 different startups and different, completely different markets and business categories, you learn a lot. And I certainly did. But as I've reflected over the years about what was the commonality, why did some of those ideas fail? One thing that has become very clear is that I just didn't care enough about those ideas. I wasn't passionate enough about those ideas to really push them to succeed. I certainly didn't care about lawyers as much to get the social network of lawyers off the ground. But one sort of rule of thumb that I sort of have used when deciding whether to pursue an idea or not is actually very simple. It's if you're not thinking about it in the shower, don't do it. And that has been very effective for me.
Yeah. It's an interesting thing with your entrepreneurial story as well, because you hate grocery shopping. So now you're in the, so talk about that process. I mean, you talked about how you growing up in Canada, you hated even the idea of carrying grocery bags because your hands were freezing.
Yeah.
So how do you get to the point of hating the idea of it to creating a new company to try to solve that problem?
Yeah, I think there are two types of ideas. There are painkillers and there's vitamins, right? I think Instacart certainly is a painkiller, and I think the way I think about it is that if Instacart didn't exist, my life as a consumer would be materially worse, right? Today, about half of Instacart deliveries, more than half of Instacart deliveries come from the Instacart Express program, where these people have paid a membership fee and all their delivery fees are waived for the entire year. These customers order more than 4 times a month, right? They spend about $5,000 worth of grocery shopping on Instacart every single year. Essentially, for these customers, all of their grocery shopping is happening on Instacart. For these customers, we have transformed their lives in that they don't have to go to the grocery store, right? And to me, and many of these customers also see that they just didn't enjoy grocery shopping before, and now they can use that time to do anything that is more meaningful to them. And so I think it's the same painkiller for them as it was for me.
Yeah, another big part of your business is advertising with consumer packaged goods. A year ago, you said that's about 15% of your revenue. Give us an update. Where does that stand now? You said in a couple of years you were hoping to get it to as much as 45%. Where does that stand now in terms of advertising revenue?
If we step back, right, and if we look at what is happening in the CPG world, right, it's really interesting. A lot of grocery transactions, as they move online, right, have a very different characteristic. The basket mix is very different online than it is offline. The brands that were being bought offline may not be bought online, right? And so for CPG companies, it's critical to be able to influence and get new customers who are buying their groceries online to try those products, right? Fundamentally, that's what it really is that is driving our advertising business, right? And today, these companies are spending on TV, these companies are spending on Facebook and Google, but one of the things that they're finding out there is that those dollars are not very effectively trackable, right? They could be spending $1 billion on TV, but they don't know how effective those dollars are. And that's why when they invest on Instacart, they know that I invested this much money and I got this much of a sales lift. I was able to get that customer who has a dishwasher at their home to use my dishwasher detergent. I can do that analysis as a CPG company that was never been possible before. And that's why today, top 25 of the CPG companies across the world are working with Instacart. That accounts for about 1,000 brands that are working with Instacart in a variety of ways. Yeah, and I'll be candid, right now, it's the business is just run by about 8 people at Instacart, and it's already one of our fastest revenue growth.
What percentage of your business is it now?
I actually don't know exactly, but it is much higher than it was before.
Taylor, you just tested out and wrote about the Costco partnership as well with Instacart.
Yeah.
Maybe tell us a little more about what's going on there.
So last week, Costco announced that they're expanding the delivery partnership with Instacart, but also interestingly, they released their own delivery service.
Yep.
So just writing the story, I was a little bit confused. It's like, okay, is Costco going to go all in with Instacart? Are they going to now do their own thing? And it's like this interesting question. If you're a traditional retailer, do you just go all in with Instacart? Or do you invest in your own system? Do you go to Amazon?
Yep.
So how does, from a retailer's perspective, how do you see that kind of playing out?
Well, first of all, from any retailer's perspective, you certainly don't go to Amazon, right? That is a competitor. But I think it's a very important question. So if you look at what Costco did, was they said for groceries and for perishables, for same day, they're going to work with Instacart. For shipping from stores to get into the customer's door in the next 2 days, where they have those warehouses where they can pack them up and ship them to the customers, they're going to do that themselves. And this is mainly for things like electronics, for example, where you can buy Costco electronics online now. And so that was the distinction. The vast majority of the retailers that we work with are grocery retailers, right? And so for shipping from store is less relevant to them, right? And that's why they exclusively work with Instacart.
So why can't Instacart deliver stuff other than food? I mean, you mentioned the dishwasher detergent. If you have, looking at the site, can I buy a dishwasher off Instacart? Can I buy clothes? If you already have that back-end system and you're perfecting it with, your partners and all the cool technology and machine learning, why not throw some more stuff into the mix?
Absolutely. So look, our first company value is solving for the customer, right? And if our customers want delivery of other things than groceries, we absolutely will expand to those categories. What we are hearing from customers today is they want grocery delivery. And it's not just in cities like San Francisco or New York. It's cities like Rockford, Illinois, or Hamilton, Ontario, or Vancouver, British Columbia, right? And everyone is asking for groceries to be delivered to their door. This has not been possible before, right? And they want that. And so what you're seeing us do is that last year, we were just covering about 11 million households. This year, by now, and of course this is going to continue to grow, but we are already covering more than 63 million households, right? And so what you'll see us do more and more of is getting more and more customers onto the Instacart platform to deliver groceries because that's what they're asking for today.
So if you're going to focus just on groceries, do you see a time where a majority of Americans are using Instacart or another similar platform to buy groceries online? Is that going to tip? Because I would say right now, I don't know what the number is exactly, but 70, 80, 90% of folks still want to go, even though they hate the experience, you want to go pick out your meat, you want to pick out your fish, you want to do it by yourself. So do you see that tipping? I mean, obviously you guys would hope so, right?
Well, look, I think, of course, this is the next 5 years, and there are lots of predictions out there, but I think Goldman Sachs just did a report recently where they predicted that in the next 5 years, the online grocery market in just the United States, and of course, other countries are going to be different, but in the United States alone is going to be about $100 billion of spend happening online. And so we already see that happening. Today, you see that in many of the cities across the country, a high single-digit percentage of the households are already using Instacart on a weekly and a monthly basis, right? And so this is already happening, and we see that in newer markets, that's happening even faster. And so we absolutely see that.
So Apoorva, later this afternoon, we have Jeff Wilke, the CEO of Amazon's consumer business, who's coming up on the stage. Obviously, part of their consumer business is Amazon Fresh, your competitor. So what should we ask him?
Oh, I mean, I hope you have prepared
what do you
for
want
that.
To know?
But
yeah.
Look, I don't know if I have any questions for him. But I would wish him the best of luck. Groceries are a hard business.
Right. So you're 31. You have a company now valued at over $3 billion, over 300 employees, tens of thousands of shoppers across the country, tons of retail partners. So what's the next big thing for Instacart as you look at the future?
Look, we look at it from the customer's lens, and that's the most important thing for us. So how do we continue to innovate for the customers? How do we make sure our customers are getting the absolute best experience, right? So
you sound like you worked at Amazon.
If you think about it from our customer's standpoint, right? It fundamentally comes down to just three things, right? It means customers want the best selection, right? They want the greatest convenience, and they want extremely competitive pricing, right? If we do those things, more and more customers will continue to use Instacart. We will continue to lead the way when it comes to online grocery delivery. And those are the things that we want to be focusing on.
Yeah, wonderful. Let's hear for Apoorva Mehta, the CEO of Instacart. Thank you for being here, Apoorva.